Welcome. This is a presentation on, it was actually a speech that I delivered at an international conference, and this is a very toned down, watered down version of what I actually represented there, and I have only, say, 10 minutes or so at my disposal. So I cannot really do justice to presentation that took me more than, half an hour to kind of, present. But as you can see, the title is Environment is Palimpsest, Presence of Absent Space. So, what is palimpsest? Palimpsest is a postmodern concept, which is also to some extent, textual as well. It means something uh, when something is written over something else, and both layers actually uh, do remain side by side. So that when we are looking at the text, which presents itself as a palimpsest, it there's a dual meaning. There are dual layers which are available. There's a dual layer which is available, and for cross-referencing and contextual meaning making and things like that. So uh, basically, this presentation is about a lot of things. It also fundamentally seeks to question the way we like to textualize realistic problems. I mean, the way we kind of put something in academic perspective, and to do that, we use so much theory that we lose sight of the praxis of the reality. So the name is kind of a little bit theoretical, but in reality, the presentation itself is something that to some extent undermines the theoretical assumption of any academic or humanitarian or the kind of approach that the humanities generally, the faculty of humanities generally have or has towards these issues, these pressing issues, which are empirical in nature and that require firm interventionist approaches in terms of policy and decision making. What I have tried to do in this presentation, and I cannot really do justice to a plethora of information that I have tried to kind of cram within this presentation, is not only advocating the necessity of um, going for a more interventionist, pragmatic approach towards this problem, but also a way of historically situating our responses to environment and the way we uh, have learned, or the mankind has learned, to look at environment in a way which is extremely metaphorical, extremely figurative, and in a way which is chiefly anthropomorphized. And for that reason, that has to be kind of counted as extremely harmful in a very active sort of manner. So the chief purpose of this particular slide is not to show you the idyllic village or rural landscape reality of England before immediately before the industrial revolution, but it also is to kind of point towards the fact that the Europeans and the British people at one time before the industrial revolution kind of took place, they reveled in such serenity, such elements of succor and peace that nature offered, and this was a rare thing. It was appreciated by many thinkers, and the Romantics were particularly extremely agitated when there was talks about extending a railroad through the uh, scenically beautiful Lake District. That is a known environmental response to the industrial revolution. But then again, there emerged a specific kind of uh, response towards these scenic beauties and the way space was conceived, and that is called choreography. What is choreography? Choreography was a way of uh, a semi-governmental approach of making sense of the space and the people in it, which took into consideration not only the geographical space but also people living inside. So it was a very coordinated sort of approach, an organic sort of approach that did real justice to environment, in the sense that it did not necessarily dissociate environment from the anthropological reality. It took into consideration the fact that humankind, human society, or the kind of society that humankind has developed, its civilization, civilizational edifice, if it can be talked about that way, it is built, is not something that is kind of unconnected with or not connected to the environmental reality, that is choreography. Choreography was very popular, and comprehensive attempts at cartographic representation of the European landscape were attempted in different parts of Europe immediately after the Enlightenment. And choreography actually was one of the fundamental little known genres that propelled such initiatives. And if you look at this, you will see that how such representational modalities, choreographical representational modalities, kind of were there in different formats of how nature was represented, both in terms of text and in terms of picture, in terms of a static pictorial representation, um, which was significant in so many ways that I cannot really talk about within the confines of this speech. But it has to do with, among other things, the ideas of sublime and the ideas of infamy and the ideas of aesthetic modalities of how the panoramic reality has to be represented. If you come to the next slide, you will see that this is a very interesting sort of projection, which is very oft mentioned. It actually projects the king and queen of Portugal in a way which shows them as the custodians of planet Earth. And this sort of representation is called mappa mundi. What is a mappa mundi? A mappa mundi is a sort of cartographic representation is which presupposes that um, we have been chosen, that humankind has been chosen as 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 the as the custodians of the planet, that we are the poor consumers, and the entire system, the biodiversity, the agricultural setup, the zoonotic and zoological and botanical reality, as well as the topographical, geographical, geomorphological reality, and its great, and diversified flora and fauna that is created just for our consumption. And if you think about it, chief Abrahamic religions actually take this as a fundamental presupposition. And that is extremely disturbing if you think about it, because it projects environment as something that exists because of us and not the other way, which scientifically is the reality. Environment does not exist because of us, rather we exist because of the environment. That is a very big shift in thought that needed to happen. And frankly speaking, this fundamental shift has still not taken place, or we are still not kind of, we still have not interiorized this fundamental paradigm of understanding that the world is not really made for us, that we are there for the world. So I cannot really prolong this presentation, but one of the fundamental problems that we see, and the reason why and the world is in such a disastrous condition right now, Amazon fires are happening, Australian bushfires are happening, and we know that the developed nations have contributed to global warming and the global devastation of biosphere and everything associated with it in such a comprehensive manner, primarily because of the fact that the history, our thought processing, our philosophy, our metaphysics, fundamentally our religion, which is such a persuasive way of making ourselves, making us understand what is right and what is wrong, that is responsible for kind of, persuading us to think in that manner. The anthropomorphic thought processing, which places humankind at the center of everything, is extremely dangerous, as we needed a sort of Copernican revolution to get out of the geocentric model and adopt the heliocentric model, perhaps we now need another restructuring of our thought processing, another paradigm shift, as it were, to think of kind of, to be able to think that we are the byproducts of nature, that we cannot afford to be anthropocentric, not by a distant margin, that the environment exists not for us but for its own sake, but we exist because of the environment, and that the sooner we are able to forego this metaphysical religious idea of anthropocentrism and the fact that we are somehow special in the scheme of things, the better, not only for us but also for the entire human civilization.